Hi everybody, welcome back to Chaos Makers Hobby House. If you're new here, I'm Alexandra. I garden in the low country of South Carolina, Zone 8B, and it's time for a garden tour. For the side-by-side comparison, here is the garden on my last garden tour about 3 weeks ago. And here's the garden today. We have had so much rain recently and everything has absolutely exploded with growth. My green beans, purple beans, pole beans are producing pounds, like 1.5 pounds a day, and it's a little bit of insanity, but it's so beautiful. So I've got this great little shady area right at the entrance of my garden because of the pole bean arch. And you can see them all dangling there. I haven't picked today, but I did pick last night, so it's a little less than usual. I'm walking straight forward through my garden. These are the bush beans that I planted first before the pole beans because they mature faster. And I thought that they were done for now because bush beans tend to put on all their bean pods pretty much all at once, and then they stop producing for the season. But that's when the pole beans kick up, so it works out really well. But they decided they weren't done yet. They slowed down for a minute and then started putting flowers back on and are now producing like crazy. So I'm getting pole beans and bush beans, and I've had to get creative with some recipes. I found a really good one, and I tried it the other night. It's delicious. So I'll probably make a video cooking green beans in that dish. It's like a green bean potato stew. So good. But I wanted to try it out before sharing it. So look out for that in the near future. I've actually had a couple sunflowers bloom on me here in the last couple weeks, and they're not at their peak. They've started fizzling out a little bit, but this one's probably about 8 feet tall. Sharing space with a squash. And of course, if you've been following along, you know I love my squash, so it's everywhere, but they're doing pretty well. I have not noticed any improvements with the squash vine borers growing them vertically yet. I'm still pulling eggs off and pulling grubs out and having to inject with BT on occasion, but I'm hoping as the season gets a little further, maybe the stems will harden up and it'll be a little bit more resistant to the vine borer. Oh, goodness. Would you look at that? It's nasturtium flowers. Now, a nasturtium is a wonderful thing to have in the garden. One, the whole thing is edible. It's kind of peppery. I don't particularly like the taste, but it is edible. But it also works to bring in the pollinators and as a very good trap crop for insects you may not want in your garden. This was my garlic bed, and I had just pulled all the garlic. I was asking, what should I plant here? Well, I don't know if I'm going to plant here because the watermelon has thoroughly taken over, which was expected. I mean, I knew this bed was going to be empty, and that's why I let the watermelon sprawl this way, but we've got little melons starting all over the place here. This one, I believe, was the orange tender sweet watermelon. I did throw some seeds in here for cantaloupe. They might end up competing, but we'll see what happens. Y'all know I've been struggling with seeds this year, seeds germinating this year, and my cucamelon was really late to germinate this year, but it's finally taken off, it's climbing. And I just noticed that is the very first cucamelon flower. It's so tiny. Over here used to be some more garlic and some potatoes. I have pulled some potatoes that died back early, but on either side of this is my favorite melon, the Ananas d'Amérique melon that I have that'll grow over this little support. It is a personal size melon. They don't get that big, and they are doing great, although something ate the tops off of every single plant. Now, the plant should branch off and create new runners off of the original stem, but they've all been beheaded basically. But I do have a little melon starting. Oh no! Oh no! You know, I bet it was that dang rat I saw the other day. Ugh. And that's why I grow them up a trellis, because when they're close to the ground, things nibble on them. And I live kind of in the middle of nowhere, so we do get some rats and wildlife. Dang it. I mean, it's calloused over, so maybe if I cover it, it'll be okay. Put it in a little mesh baggie. Well, dang. Okay, well, that's good to know. More squash back here. If you want to know any information about a particular variety I grow, feel free to ask. I am happy to go into further detail. I just don't want this to be 2 hours long, because it could easily go that long if I covered every little thing. I mentioned in an earlier video, I am growing squash 2 different ways, summer squash 2 different ways, one up a pole and another trailing on the ground. Same variety, grown 2 different ways. You can see there's a Zephyr zucchini there. That one's on the ground sprawling. This one's growing up a pole, just to see which grows better with the pest and disease and heat and humidity of South Carolina. I have another watermelon sprawling over here. I can't remember which variety I planted. Let me get to the other side. Okay, so that's a black diamond. It may be too shady at the moment. It is starting to branch out into the sunnier areas. It's got a lot of flowers. I haven't seen any fruit set on it yet, though. Curious to see what this sunflower will look like. That is a volunteer. I did not plant that, so it's getting pretty big. Here's the Patterson's White scallop squash, another vertically grown one, and it has had some squash vine borer issues that I have managed to stop before they did too much damage to the plant. And there's its counterpart sprawling. Now, with all this rain we've been having, which we desperately needed the rain, don't get me wrong, but it has caused some fungal diseases to start take hold. See that kind of yucky looking stem there. You can see it pretty well on this one. It's a Precocium, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, Precocium blight. They love hot, humid, wet environments, and that's South Carolina. But I do see, I also have a squash vine borer in here. That is frass, basically the poop of the squash vine borer. So I'm going to have to inject BT and see if I can dig that out today, because this one is growing vertically, so it's not going to set roots along the stem like a lot of summer squash will, and root above the damage, so I need to stop it. More fungal diseases. I'm gonna have to do a lot more succession sowing this year than I usually do, but thanks to a nice long growing season, I absolutely can. Oh, finally! So this lychee tomato, this not technically a true tomato, the thorny, evil mess is finally ripening. I've pulled a few off here already. This one's teeny tiny, but they do get much bigger. I could have swore I saw a red one last night that only needed a little bit. I did. Oh gosh, you see it back there? Hold on. That's the downfall of this plant. It is a thorny disaster. So let me use 2 hands to grab that. Got it. Oh, vicious plant. That's why it's tucked in the back corner of my garden where it doesn't get much traffic. But lychee tomatoes taste kind of like a combination of a cherry tomato and an actual cherry. They're sweeter. They do have harder seeds though. Here, let me see. I needed to get in the shade. It's already getting really warm. There you go. Let's see the inside if I can get to focus. There we go. So, ooh, no! Dang it. Well, guess that one's going to the chickens. But it doesn't really look like a tomato on the inside. They're really good. All right, ladies. Have my mistake. Enjoy. They've got a little bit of a tartness to them, and they're not very acidic, which is really nice. So it's almost kind of like it's not as tart as a tart cherry. but it's not as sweet as the sweet cherries. Somewhere in the middle there with a tomato undertone. I keep saying it's going to be time to pull my potatoes soon. It's been time to pull some of them soon. Clearly, some of them die back while the other ones are still kicking, so I'm just kind of giving it a little bit more time and pulling a few as they completely die back or as I need them for meals. But I really can't tell you what to expect with potatoes this year. I did get my first tomato. I had to pull it early because of all the rain so it wouldn't split, so it's ripening on the counter, but Mr. Stripey gave me one tomato. And the tomato plants I planted that I grew from seed are finally looking like real tomato plants. They are doing much, much better and flowering, so hopefully we'll be getting fruit here soon. Even the tiny little pipsqueak one. Yes, it's still a tiny little pipsqueak, but strangely enough, that's actually a really healthy size for how small this thing starts out. It's the only one I will grow in a tomato cage because it only gets a foot or two tall. It's so tiny, so tiny. It's a Tidy Treats cherry tomato. I got my basil. Oh gosh, it smells so good. On my little Pekinho pepper, I have been pulling a handful off here and there. It's just now starting to ripen and produce. And this, the New Mex Easter pepper. This is my first year growing it, and I'm honestly not sure when to pick them. But they've got all these teeny tiny little purple peppers on them. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. Or if you know about the New Mex Easter pepper and can tell me when they're ripe, when they're ready, I would love to hear it. It's a tiny banana pepper. Took a moment to grab some of the larger green beans. Apparently I missed one for a few days. Speaking of green beans, the Japanese beetles have absolutely shredded my Kentucky Wonder green beans. Hopefully they're going to be moving on soon. This happens every year. And every year it recovers, but it's a mess. They do go after other plants, and it's a constant battle. But yeah, that's terrible. But again, the Blauhilde pole beans, untouched by Japanese beetles. They don't care. And I did read somewhere and had multiple people tell me that geraniums, put a geranium out and the Japanese beetles will go after the geranium before they go after anything else. It's literally hanging underneath my pole beans, which the Japanese beetles adore. And there has not been one beetle that has landed on this thing. So I don't know if maybe I just got the wrong type of geranium or if that's just an old wives' tale and doesn't actually work. But it's not working for me. I do have these bait bags all over the place, distances from my garden, and they're working. They're collecting a lot of beetles. I've actually been feeding them to the chickens daily, and they're getting a lot of protein, let's just say that, but they're still going after the garden. So yes, the beetle bags work. They do trap the beetles. Some say they draw them to the area, which is why you put them away from the garden, but they're still going after the garden anyway. So the strawberries surprisingly have been popping off again too, like the beans. They stopped producing for a while. I thought that was the end of them, and then they just put on a bunch of new blooms and started making strawberries again. I've been getting a snackable amount daily, which I'm definitely not mad at. This is one of my other green stalks. I have a few strawberries in here that are just now getting established, and the beetles are loving them. But my straw flower, I have so many random things in this. I just love the straw flower. That's just wild. But it's starting to bloom, and I have ground cherries over here that I just took a peek at, and it looks like they're starting to bloom too. It might be a bit silly for me to grow ground cherries in the green stalk, but I had some open pockets in here and figured why not? I've got ground cherries other places as well. Throw them in where you can fit them. Oh. I can touch this all day. For someone who is very sensitive to tactile things. Oh, this is so cool. It is getting insanely warm out already. It's still pretty early in the day, but let's go take a look at the second little garden bed area where all the corn and loofah are. So this is how we looked on the last garden tour. Again, I think that was roughly 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit less. And this is today. Would you look at the sunflower? Oh, I wanted to get out here when the sunflower was in the peak, but we had some horrible thunderstorms that were just non-stop, and I couldn't get out here. But this thing, all in all, is about 10 feet tall. It's a little droopy now, but she was absolutely glorious. Not my most flattering angle, but you can kind of see how much taller it is than I am. The corn is corning. It's got quite a few ears all over it, doing really well. Minus the fact that, again, the Japanese beetles, they keep chewing off the silks. I'll come in here and there'll be no silks on an ear of corn because the Japanese beetles decided to give it a haircut, which is a little bit of a problem. You can see the haircut it was given there. You see how corn is pollinated. It is the tassels at the top, these frilly bits at the top. That is the male portion of the plant. That is where the pollen comes from. The pollen from there has to drop down and touch every single silk in order to get an ear of corn. Every one of these tiny little hairs attaches to one kernel of corn in here. One nugget of corn. If that silk doesn't receive pollen from those tassels, the ear won't develop. The kernel won't develop. So when the Japanese see, look at it. Look at that. When the Japanese beetles decide to give the silks a haircut, it means that the pollen can't get to them. So it won't develop. So yeah, that's been really frustrating. And it's not something I've really had to deal with in the past. I don't know if I'm late on my corn or the Japanese beetles are early. Usually they don't show up until after the silks have been pollinated. So if the silks get eaten off at that point, it's fine because they're already pollinated. They're already going to develop. Take a look at this. Okay, this is wild. So what are we looking at? We're looking at silks, which means there's an ear of corn there. But we're also looking at tassels. Hold on. This is producing the tassel, which is out of the top of the corn and the ear in the same spot. What is that? That is absolutely wild. Okay, does anyone know what's going on here? See, so yes, there's the tassel. And clearly we got corn developing here. And it doesn't really have a husk on it, so it's just out in the open. Wow, that's a new one. Okay, does anyone know what this is? Why it's doing this? Well, anyway, here you'll see a corn that didn't get the silks eaten off that has been fully pollinated. They turn brown and crusty. I don't feel any good kernels in there yet. Once you can start feeling the little lumps and bumps under the husk is when you can start peeling back just a teeny tiny bit to check the kernels on how their size is doing. I was so focused on the corn, I didn't even see. We have loofah. Yeah, so all the big stuff over this trellis. Oh, there's so many more. This is all loofah gourd. There we go. Can't believe I almost missed that. So I've got two different varieties. I've got one that produces black seeds and one that produces white seeds because they actually produce a different textured sponge, and I like having variety. Sugar baby watermelon with scratch marks. Oh, is something going after this? Something tried. Tendril is still plenty green, so this baby's got more time. This is the only fruit on this plant though. It set a lot of flowers and then none of them seemed to take, and now it's not really setting flowers anymore. Story of my life with watermelon. I try every year. I'm not good at it. On to the front yard. I recently redid all my flower bed and planted a bunch of new things. So they're still small, but they are starting to fill in. This is my Lapins sweet cherry. All the netting is because of the Japanese beetles. You can see the little bit that I wasn't able to cover, absolutely decimated. And since it's such a small young tree, if the beetles defoliated this entire thing, it'd be the end of the tree. It wouldn't survive that. So keeping it covered until the beetle threat is gone. Dorman red raspberries are doing fabulously. They are producing so well. They're right next to my Nancy Garrison passion fruit, which I think on the last video was actually coming out of dormancy, and something happened to it and the root system just rotted. I stuck my finger in there and it's not overly wet, but the root system is mush. I don't think it's gonna come back, which is so unfortunate because those are so hard to find and make such good fruit. We'll see what happens, I guess. But I gotta be quick about getting these when they're ripe because the birds will not hesitate. Even with my little mascot here. So let me go grab everything I can find. Well, apparently that's what I get for sleeping in on my birthday. The early birds were earlier than me and got to them first. I've tried covering them in the past, but I haven't found a cover system that works well for this area where they don't just get super tangled up in it. Because these produce all year. It's not just a big flush and then they're done. Ooh, I see pretty things. Oh, the Siam tulips are blooming. They don't have much of a smell, but man, are they pretty. Got lots of blooms on the dwarf pomegranate. They're such cute little blooms. I don't see any that are fully opened up to show you. They look like little parachute pants, but moving on. Ooh, my persimmon tree is loaded with fruit. It's holding on to quite a few. I did thin the fruit and then it proceeded to drop even more after I had thinned it. Basically, since it's a young tree, it can't support the amount of fruit it tried to put on. So it dropped them so it can focus on just supporting a few. And yes, the beetles are getting these too. I'm happy to report that my young pomegranate tree, the wonderful pomegranate, the full size one, which died back randomly, here's the cut off bits, is regrowing quite well. Set back another year, so probably won't get fruit, but it's good to see growing. I have one lone fig on my teeny tiny fig tree. I know I should probably pull that off because it's such a young tree and needs to focus on other things, but come on, it's just one little fig. I can't pull it off. And unfortunately, I got next to no blueberries. The birds got every single one of them. They would get them right before they were ripe enough to pick. I didn't get around to covering them this year because I had other things I was dealing with, and clearly they need to be covered. Ian's golden raspberries are struggling this year. Not quite sure what is going on with them. Maybe I was just a bit too aggressive with my pruning, which is entirely possible. They've put on a few berries, but nothing to write home about. Nothing really much to talk about with these, to be honest. That's okay, I'm still getting red raspberries. I don't need the gold ones. Alright, well, trying to make this one relatively quick because it's my birthday and I have things I want to get done before I go out and celebrate with my husband tonight. So, thank you for joining me on today's garden tour. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to hear them, love to help. And I'll see you next time. Bye.